morning, guys. Welcome to Liverpool FC Journal, guys. We're live on this Friday morning. And you know what's really good about the fact that it's Friday morning? There's one, apart from it's Friday, obviously, is that tomorrow there is real, proper, genuine football again. The Premier League back in full swing. That's right, Premier League is back. No more international break. No more boring international football. We are back to the proper stuff. Liverpool go head-to-head with Nottingham Forest at Anfield. But it's a worrying situation, isn't it? A very worrying situation as regards the team, as regards who is available, who is not available. We're going to talk all things to do with that this morning. We're also going to look ahead as well. Obviously, we're going to look at possible signings. We're going to look at the news around all that. Lots still going on about that. Lots of things to get through. Obviously, if you just found the Liverpool FC Journal, guys, we are a brand new independent fan channel here on YouTube. We're also on TikTok. We're on X. We're on Instagram. We're all over the place. We're on Facebook. Obviously, please give us a check out. We'll drop some more links to those places in the descriptions for the videos coming up, obviously, on the channel. But look, if you've just found the channel, give us a sub, please, guys. Obviously hit the sub. Let us know your thoughts on all things Liverpool. Let us know your thoughts on the channel as well. Thanks, obviously, for getting involved. Look, it is what it is, guys. Look, now let's get started, shall we? Look, Arne Slot spoke to the media this morning. I had my cup of coffee this morning. Been out walking the dog. It's bloody cold out there. Right, Arne Slot spoke to the media this morning ahead of the game against Forest. Arne seems on fairly good form. The biggest issues that's come out of this presser is the availability of certain players for this game. The availability of Alison Becker, the availability of Alexander Isak, the availability of Conor Bradley, Jeremy Frimpong, Joe Gomez, and rather worryingly also Florian Wirtz as well. Look, let's start with the biggest concern and the biggest issue, obviously, at hand, which is the right back issue at the football club. Conor Bradley, out injured. Conor's out. So Conor will be out injured, not just for the Forest game, but also for all the upcoming 7 games in the next 22 days. And we have a mad run of games upcoming, don't we? Absolute crazy run of games upcoming. And Conor will miss them all. Look, before we talk about kind of what Slot might do and what the situation is, I just want to talk a little bit about Conor Bradley as a player. Look, I want to get things ultimately clear right from the outset. I like Conor Bradley. I'm a big fan of Conor's. I like him as a player. I think he's a lad that works very hard. I think he's a lad that plays hard. He's a lad who is capable of being a very, very, very good footballer. Going forward, he's certainly improved. I think that was one of the big criticisms, in terms of the comparison with Trent, was that Conor wasn't as good going forward, but was perhaps a little bit more solid defensively. And I think Conor is very solid defensively. Yes, he has his off days, he has his bad games, as does everybody. But, Conor on the whole is a very good defender. And I certainly think that he has improved substantially his attacking side of his game as well. Could he score a few more goals? Yeah, possibly. When he gets forward, could he provide a few more assists? Maybe. That's something else. But, Conor's a good player. He is a very, very good player. Now, your big concern here, obviously, with regards to Conor Bradley, is the lad's fitness, is the fact that he does get injured an awful lot, doesn't he? He really does suffer for injuries. Last season, he missed a number of games injured. He's missed games this season already with injuries. And, one of the big concerns over Conor going forward, as his potential to be, the starting Liverpool fullback of the future, is his availability. It is a massive worry. The more games he misses, given the fact that we are short at right back, it is very, very concerning for me. Look, you see the game, I just brought it up on the screen now, the games we've got upcoming in the next few days. You look at those games, we've got obviously Forest on Saturday, then it's Wednesday night against PSV before a Sunday against West Ham, and then a Wednesday against Sunderland, and then on the 8th of December we face Leeds away. Then on the 9th of December it's Inter away, before on the 13th it's Brighton at home, and then on the 20th it is Tottenham away. Rather, concerning, given all those games upcoming, that Connor is probably going to miss all of them. Now, that would not be as big an issue if there was a replacement, if there was a backup right back you could bring in who would place Connor straight away, and you wouldn't be concerned. However, you may obviously know, and you will know by now, that the other right back, the lad we signed from Bayer Leverkusen in the summer, is also out injured as well. Jeremy Frimpong will not be available until the first week, at the earliest, December. The very earliest, the first week in December. So possibly the Leeds Inter games, he may be available. But it is still very much a maybe available. And Arne Slot kind of did drop a hint this morning. There's a strong likelihood that he won't be available either for any of these 7 games in 22 days. So we're going into these next 7 games in 22 days without a fit right back. Well, a fit starting right back. And, you could consider Frimpong and Bradley as the 2 starting right backs. And this, I think, presents a wider issue for the club going forward. I think when Liverpool signed Jeremy Frimpong in the summer, it was felt that, the fact that obviously that Conor Bradley was already at the club, that Frimpong was obviously then signed, that was obviously the right back issue sorted. There was no problems there at right back. We had the right back, so we didn't need to worry. That was a position that was organised. However, now, you can start to raise more wider questions over the right back slot. Do we have the right back situation sorted, or is there a need perhaps to go out and look into the summer? I would say more than January, to bring in a right back. Connor, like I said, Connor's injuries are a major concern. They are a big concern for me, and the amount of games that he misses now through injury are becoming a major concern for me. I am worried. I am concerned about this. Really am concerned about this going forward. What is the situation with Conor Bradley? Look, what are the options? That's the question. You're going to ask now is what are the options? Now, Arne Slot at the presser this morning spoke about the fact that Curtis Jones played at right back last season. He spoke about the fact that obviously Dom Szoboszlai has done it this season. He spoke also about Joe Gomez as well. Look, we'll touch on those in a minute. I think, interestingly and worryingly, he didn't even mention Calvin Ramsey. Is Calvin Ramsey even an option for Liverpool? Is he someone that Liverpool don't even see as a right back going forward for them, as someone who could figure? I watched the presser this morning, then took the dog out for a walk. On the walk, I was scrolling through X, looking at some of obviously the Liverpool fans' comments over this. And there's a lot of people online this morning. And I understand that social media is a very poisonous place. I really do get that. But, a lot of people this morning mentioning Calvin Ramsey. This is Calvin's time. Let's put Calvin out there. A lot of people talked about the fact that Calvin Ramsey played very, very well in that League Cup tie. He was probably one of the only players that came out of that League Cup tie with any sort of credit. So, is it a situation that that this could be his opportunity? But as I said, as in reply to a couple of these people who commented this, at no point this morning did Arne Slot even mention Calvin Ramsey. When he was kind of mentioning who will come in and replace him, which was kind of directly asked by one of the journos at the presser this morning, he mentioned Sobbo, he mentioned Curtis Jones, he mentioned Joe Gomez. He didn't even mention Calvin Ramsey's name. So is this kind of a number one, that Calvin Ramsey has zero future at this club, and there's absolutely no chance that this man will even be reckoned on, or will even have an opportunity to play, at any point, certainly. So, look, this is interesting times in terms of that. But my personal opinion on this, and look, he talked about Curtis, he talked about Joe, he talked about Sobbo. Now, on the Joe Gomez situation, he was quite interesting in what he said about the Joe Gomez situation. He said that basically Joe had only played 2 lots of 90 minutes in 2025. And, if we want Joe Gomez to continue to be available, then you can't really play him for 7 games in 22 days either. So it really does sound to me as if as if Joe Gomez is not even an option either, which is really interesting and concerning at the same time. One, it's interesting that Arna's straight away pouring cold water on the Joe Gomez at right back idea and saying that there's no chance of this, it's not going to happen. But also, by the same token, it kind of raises a few questions for me about Joe Gomez and his ability to play for Liverpool going forward. If his fitness is so unreliable that you can't play him, week in, week out, or even twice a week in that 22-day period, then is it a safe option going forward to continue with Joe Gomez as one of your prime backups at right back and one of your prime backups at centre back? Is this a long-term future? Now, when Schlopp was questioned about the whole centre back issue and buying a centre back, he said that nothing was further from his mind at this time. He did joke, I'm sure it's not from further from Richard's mind, which was interesting, that comment there. He then mentioned all the players who can play there, Grav and Endo and Andy Robbo and so on and so forth. It to me is a concern. That comment alone, that he can't play 7 times in 22 days, does kind of say to me that this is a player that is kind of reaching the end. And look, I love Joe Gomez. I think Joe is one of the best servants we've had for the club. He's a top man. But it kind of questions Joe's availability and questions Joe's suitability going forward as a player long-term with a long-term future at the club. If you can't depend on him, you can't rely on him to come in when you need him, then what do you do? What do you do going forward? I don't think he'll play Curtis Jones at right back because, at all points this season when we've been struggling, and we've struggled a few times now at right back, when the Newcastle game, for instance, the Arsenal game, when we were missing, obviously, Bradley and Frimpong as starters, he goes with Sobbo there. Curtis Jones wasn't even in the reckoning. Now, I know Curtis played there last season, but realistically, I don't see Curtis as an option. So, the kind of trend is towards perhaps Dominic Szoboszlai starting as a right back against Forest on Saturday. Now, my main worry and main concern with that is if you put Sobbo at right back, it massively takes out of the midfield. Sobbo's energy, Sobbo's drive, Sobbo's leadership from the middle, I think is absolutely vital for this team. If you go back over the last few games, even the ones we haven't played so well in and the games that Liverpool have lost, the one kind of shining light, the one kind of positive from all of that has always been Dominic Szoboszlai in midfield. Well, don't get me wrong, Dom's been outstanding wherever he's played. He's played as an 8, he's played as a 10, he's played as a right back. He's been outstanding wherever he is. And I think against Chelsea, he played in all 3 positions in the same game. But my worry is that taking Dom out of the midfield just weakens the team hugely. And look, nothing against the midfielders that we've got, nothing against Curtis, who'll probably come in to replace him, or nothing against Maka. But the drive and the determination that Dom brings from midfield, for me, is the main reason why he's got to play there. Do I think he will? Do I think he will play there? Do I think that he will start Dom at right back? Probably will. I'll be honest with you. I think he probably will start Dom at right back, if I'm being honest with you. I think that's probably what he'll go for. Do I think it's the right thing to do? No, because, look, Calvin Ramsey can play there. Joe Gomez can play there. And I'm not saying for a minute, like I said, start. I'm not saying that Joe Gomez does start every game in the next 20 odd days. Of course I'm not. But what I am saying is that maybe, just maybe, we need to look at this in terms of Dom is more important in midfield, and using him at right back weakens that midfield. Now against Forest, you can have a tough midfield battle, and you can't afford to lose that tough midfield battle. they've got some decent midfielders there. Elliot Anderson obviously jumped straight off the page, and Dominic Szoboszlai, I think, is massively key. Now, if Florian Wirtz was available, you could perhaps make the argument, well, okay, what we'll do is we'll go with Dom at right back and we'll put Wirtz back in the 10 and give him the opportunity to really, take control of the game and lead from the front, lead the press from the front in that 10 role, to bring his form from Germany to bring his form to Liverpool on Saturday. But unfortunately, as the manager revealed in the presser today, Florian Wirtz is also out injured now. So he's reported back from Germany duty with an injury too. So there is no Florian Wirtz either. Now, some people may say that's not a big issue, given the fact that he hasn't played particularly well to this point. I'm not saying he's played terrible. He certainly hasn't played terrible. He's created a lot of chances, but just they haven't been taken. Yes, perhaps he hasn't lived up to the hype that he came in with or the price tag. But as I said, I've said multiple times, it's not his fault. He cost over 100 million. That's what the club's agreed on. It's not his fault that he's at that price tag. So at the end of the day, you've got to look at it in terms of he's done all right with the players that with the way he's played so far. Yes, certainly, like I said, not to the level that you would expect. But Florian Wirtz, for me, is, again, him being out is a concern. It does weaken our options. Even if you don't want to start him, having him come off the bench, I think, will provide a decent, option there. It provides you with some attacking opportunity. So it is a worry. It's a real concern for me going forward. Again, there's another player out injured. Olivia, welcome. Olivia says, got to start Ramsey at right back. I'd be more inclined to start him there than Sobbo. I want to see Sobbo in midfield, Olivia, but I don't think that will happen. Realistically, I genuinely don't think that will happen, miss. Not a chance. But yeah, talk about the Florian Wirtz been out. Look, I mean, it's a worry. It's a concern. And I think the other big sort of disappointment around this Florian Wirtz news that he's missing and he will be out injured for this weekend's game is he's coming off playing very well for the German national team. He was one of their star players. He's got those assists. He played really, really well. Now, as a player, what you would want, surely, is to come back off your national team. Your confidence must be high. Hit the ground running, back for your club side. Go out there, impress. But he comes back. He can't play. He's injured, and he's back at square one in terms of that. So it's a major worry that another player that is coming in the summer, another player who we had exceptionally high hopes for, is out injured. So this, I think, leads to us pretty much having a front three and a midfield that kind of picks itself. I think, and as I've said, I think the midfield, I think that Sobbo will go back to right back. I think that is a given. I think that, obviously given the fact that Wirtz is out as well, I think he'll go with a midfield of Grav, Maka and Jones, and I think he'll go with a front three of Salah, Ekitike and Gakpo. Ryan Gamoa, he's not going to play him. Federico Chiesa, as much as I would love to see Federico get an opportunity, I'm a massive Federico Chiesa fan. I think he's playing really well when he's certainly never let the club down. He probably plays with more heart, fight, bottle and passion than most of the players, bar Dominic Szoboszlai. I'd love to see him get an opportunity. I think, I personally wouldn't start Salah on Saturday. I think his form's dreadful at the moment. I do think that Chiesa is an option, but I don't think Arne Slot will use Chiesa as an option. In terms of the midfield, he clearly doesn't trust Endo in that holding role, so he's not going to play him there. Realistically, there is no one else. So realistically, I think the front sort of six kind of picks itself. Graven Maka, Jones, Salah, Ekitike and Gakpo. I think that will be the attacking kind of six in this game. We'll talk about the defence shortly, but look, I think they're the only options he's got. Cody Gakpo will come back in. Cody, fortunately, is coming back off having quite a good run of form for the Netherlands. Obviously scored goals, has assists, has done really well for the Netherlands over the last few weeks as well. So that's positive at least. Ekitike as well, coming back on a real high as well after some very good performances for the France national team. Grav's done okay for Holland. Hasn't been massively impressive apparently. So I do think, that is probably what he's going to go for, given the injury news this morning. But like I said, I think, at the start of the podcast, the injury news for me, in terms of the right back area, is worrying. It's concerning, and it's something that the club will maybe need to address in the summer to make a judgment over Connor, to make a judgment over Jeremy Frimpong. Do they sit down in the summer and go, right, let's look at this right back area. Look, Connor, you probably could be a backup at Liverpool for the rest of your career, but your injury record isn't great, so we can't rely on you as a starter. And look, sorry, Jeremy, it really hasn't worked out for us. You're not a right back, you're more a right wing back. We don't play that way unless we change formation next season, which has been talked about and has been discussed, in which case Liverpool need to invest in an awful lot of centre-backs over the next 2 windows. So, look, it is what it is, guys. It is a concern for me, these 2 injuries. And I think nobody expected this. I think, this morning when you sat down to watch the press conference, I think a lot of people would have obviously sat there and were like, okay, we need to find out about what's happening with Alexander Isak, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We need to find out where Alisson's up to with his recovery. But in terms of that, it's looking fairly good, isn't it? In terms of fitness and health. And then obviously these bombshell news comes out, and the Florian Wirtz injury, at least on the positive, is not thought to be as long as the Bradley injury. It's thought that Wirtz may be available. Certainly not, I don't think, for these next 2 games, but maybe available for the West Ham or the Sunderland game. But like I said, probably not for the next couple of games at least. But Arne Slot did say that it's not a long-term injury that Florian Wirtz has got, which is positive from that aspect. But the Conor Bradley one, like I said, there is a big question mark over Conor. And like I said, I'm not someone who will sit here and slag Conor off. I like Conor as a lad. I like Conor as a player. I think he fights hard. He works hard. Like I said, it's his injury history that is just a major worry. It's a major worry. And it's a major concern, the amount of games that lad has missed. He really has missed an awful lot of games. I'm just going to try and quickly find out for you what is it, how many games he has missed and what his injury history looks like. Let's have a quick look on his injury history. So, in terms of Conor Bradley, since 23-24, he had a back injury which he missed 25 games for Liverpool in the 23-24 season. He had an ankle injury where he missed 6. He had a hamstring injury in 24-25 where he missed 9. He had a muscle injury in 24-25 where he missed 10. And then he had a hamstring injury 25-26 where he missed 3. And now he's going to miss at least 7 more games. So, you're looking at the fact that Conor has missed 40, 50, 53. Well, he's missed 60 games in the last 3 seasons. That's pretty much half a season. Every season he's missing through injury. And that's a lot of injuries. And that's a lot of time to miss. And that's one of the things I think that people are worried about. Now, I think a lot of people were hoping with Conor that because he's a young player, still developing, still growing, that this would be, something that would go in time, like it did with Stevie G to some degree, that is, as his body matured and got bigger, got stronger, that he would be available, that he would be more available. But that availability is not good. And I think, I watch a lot of NFL, and as one NFL coach once said, the best ability is availability. And certainly that's not something that Conor Bradley has got. So it is a bit of a concern. It is a big concern for me, how much time Conor misses, how much time he has off the football field. So, look, at the end of the day, I'm concerned about the right back going into the game this Saturday. And I think if you ask me to put my house on it, I would say the back 4 will be this. I think it would be this. I might be wrong. Calvin might start. Curtis might start. I don't know. I think he will go with this. I think he will go with Sobbo at right back, Konate, Virgil in the middle, and I think he'll start Kirkez, the alien, at left back. Yes, Kirkez, the alien. Just still comments that baffle my mind. I think, given the amount of football Robbo has played, and also that emotional interview that he gave post Scotland's game. By the way, don't slag Scottish national team off. Jesus, the hate you get. Fucking hell. Can't take a joke, Scottish fans. Really can't. Sabo, Konate, Virgil and Kirkez. I think he will go with that. I think, Kirkez will come back in. Like I said, given Andy's kind of outlay of emotion and physicality over the last few weeks and games, I think he won't risk Andy Robertson in the Forest game. I think he'll go with Kirkez. So, my outfield team, and we'll talk about goalkeepers in a minute, would be Sobo, Konate, Virgil, Kirkez, Grav, Maka, Jones, Salah, Ekitike and Gakpo. That's how I think he would line up in terms of his outfield 10 on Saturday versus Nottingham Forest. Now, I know one question you're kind of asking is that you've got Ekitike in there. And like I said, Ekitike, I think, will be sky high in terms of his optimism and his confidence after a very impressive international break with France. Your question is over Alexander Isak, isn't it? You want to know what the situation is with Alexander Isak. Alexander is obviously returning from injury. Alexander is coming back now. Arne Slot did speak about Alexander in this morning's press conference. He said basically he is fit and he is able to play. Now, he said that they kind of hoped that Alexander would have got a few more minutes for Sweden over the international break to try and get some match sharpness back into his legs. Now, he did play around about half an hour of the first game, but didn't play any of the second game, which Arne explained was only down to the fact that Alexander Isak has a booking against his name, and it was something to do with suspensions and things like that. I don't know what the situation is with that or why. I didn't really listen to the rest of that. So that is a bit of a concern. So Alexander Isak is lacking match fitness, match sharpness. So given those comments and given the fact that Ekitike has obviously played, come on as a sub and started for France over this international break and pre-international break, Ekitike was starting as well up top for Liverpool. I honestly believe that will continue, that Ekitike, because he has the match sharpness, he has the match physicality, he will start. I think Isak will be someone who comes off the bench on Saturday. I think we'll see him for 20-25 minutes on Saturday at some point. I can't see him not coming on at some point. I can't see it being another Manchester City because I think at that point he'd only just come back from injury. There wasn't a desire to risk the player. So I think he'll be a substitute. I think he'll come on as a sub. I think he will play a part. Now, obviously, the other big topic of conversation was around Alisson Becker. Obviously, Alisson has missed a large amount of football, of going out injured against Galatasaray. Since that Galatasaray game, he's missed, I think it's 8 games he has missed, which is a major number of games. It's a major number of games that he's missed as a player. But Arne Slot, speaking about him today, did say that he has trained. He trained last week with the first team. He's trained again this week, so will be available providing he comes through today's training session for the game on Saturday. Now, there was a direct question then posed to Arne over Alisson Becker, which was, if Alisson is fit and comes through training, does he start? To which Arne answered, yes, he will start. So I think there's little to no doubt in my mind, obviously, that Arne very much sees it as he did last season, where no matter what happens with his replacement, whether it be Kelleher last season or Mamouashvili this season, he starts, he plays, no matter what. Now, I don't disagree with that. I don't fundamentally disagree with that one. I think that he is by far the best goalkeeper at the club. He's by far the best keeper in the world. And having Alisson back gives you great defensive stability. I think, the back four, especially when it will be a change back four, I think, and obviously having no right back, will have a lot more confidence with Alisson Becker behind them than they will with Giorgio Mamouashvili. Now, a penny for Georgie's thoughts at this point. I think, Mamouashvili will think that he's come in and done fairly well. Is he aware, or is he in kind of denial about the situation that he would probably know by now that if Alisson's fit, Alisson starts, no matter what. No matter how well you're playing Mamouashvili, you're not going to play if Alisson's fit. I'd love to get kind of an honest take from him. You would get the whole, I support obviously the boss's decisions. Alisson's a great keeper. Wish him all the best on Saturday. Blah blah blah. The usual stuff that you would get because teammates don't come out and criticise each other unless they want to get a transfer somewhere. So, penny for his thoughts. Now, look, I'm not arguing with the decision. I think it's a good decision. I mean, personally, I think Alisson's outstanding. I think he's a million times better than Giorgio Mamouashvili. I've even gone on record, and you can look back at some of the videos, and you can look back at the TikToks and the X account and see this, that Mamouashvili, for me, is a good shot stopper, but his distribution is not great. His command of his area is not great. I don't think Mamouashvili gives the confidence to the defence that Alisson gives. And I think some of the goals that we've conceded over the last few games that Alisson's been out, we probably wouldn't have conceded had Alisson been the goalkeeper. You know, I'm talking about the Brentford goal. Is it the Sade goal, the one where he's through on goal and he kind of, Giorgio hangs back. Whereas Alisson, I think he's out, he's up, he's in his face. He makes himself big. He makes it as difficult as possible for the player to score. So I do think that, you know, Mamoulaşvili is a decent keeper, but he's certainly not Alisson Becker. I think he is a downgrade on Kelleher. I don't think he's as good as Kameen Kelleher. I think Kelleher is a lot better keeper than Mamoulaşvili, and he does slightly concern me going forward. He really does. You know, the fact that one day, you know, we will be without Alisson. You know, Alisson's not getting any younger, and obviously given all the injuries that Alisson gets, he perhaps will reach a point where it's one injury too many and he's out for a really long period and he decides perhaps to call it a day. I don't know. Or maybe he wants a fresh challenge. I don't know. You know, I don't know what the situation is with Alisson and how Alisson's thinking. I'm not inside his brain, but Alisson to me is a better goalkeeper and has to start. And that's what Arna's kind of said this morning, that Alisson will start. So, you know, I mean, that's positive. Alisson being back is massive. You know, if you look at his pre-injury saves and his pre-injury record, you know, there were games where he kept us in it. There was games where he kept the score down. The Palace away game, for example. So having him back for me is absolutely massive having Alisson back, and really pleased that he is back and available for Liverpool this weekend. And I'm sure there'll be a more confident back four there because of the fact that Alisson is behind them, and especially, like I said, given the fact that he's probably going to have to change the two fullbacks again, it will give them more confidence knowing that Alisson is behind them. And that they've got that sweeper keeper. They've got that guy who comes and makes himself big, that guy who shuts players down very, very quickly, who can pull off that world-class save, you know, at a moment's notice. So Alisson back, it is great news. It's good news, really positive news for Liverpool going forward. Now, look, this weekend, obviously, Liverpool play against Forest at 3 o'clock. It's the first 3 o'clock kickoff we've had this season, which is quite remarkable. You know, we're going to look at the signings in a minute, guys. You know, we're going to look at the Semenyo, Guéhi, Wharton stuff in a moment. I mean, just to kind of go over with you the games that are happening over this weekend. So the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday is Burnley-Chelsea. You've got to kind of fancy Chelsea in that one. Then it's Liverpool Forest, Bournemouth, West Ham. I think Bournemouth win that one. Wolves, Palace. I think Palace win that one. Brighton, Brentford. I can see a draw there. Fulham, Sunderland. I think it'll be a draw. Newcastle, Man City, massive game. That's a 5:30 kickoff. I think Man City go to Newcastle and get the points. Leeds, Villa. Villa probably beat Leeds there. You know, not really massively impressed with Leeds this season. Arsenal, Tottenham on Sunday. You've got to hope that Tottenham maybe can scrape a draw at the Emirates. Can't see it personally. I think that Arsenal will beat them. And then Man United, Everton at 8 o'clock on Monday. Can they both lose? Could they both lose, please? I think Man United probably beat Everton, if I'm being honest on that one. So, you know, that's the games that are upcoming this weekend. You know, some interesting fixtures. And Liverpool have got some interesting fixtures upcoming. You know, Opta said the other day that we've got the easiest run of fixtures of any Premier League team. So that's a fascinating one, isn't it? That's a fascinating one, nonetheless. Right, let's move along a little bit. Guys, just remember, if you've just found the channel, please obviously smash a like on the podcast. Please subscribe to the channel to help the channel keep growing. And please comment as well and share and do all that good stuff to help the new channel grow. I would be extremely grateful if you would. Right, let's move it along a little bit. Let's talk January. Look, January is not far away. We're the 21st today, 30 days in November, so 9 more days of this month, and then you've got the madness of December and the madness of Christmas, 31 days. So we're 40 days away from the start of the January transfer window, so it's not a long way away. Now, there are persistent links in the media, and it could all be media speculation. You know, it could all just be pure media clickbait. We know that the media know that if they put stuff out there about Liverpool FC, Liverpool fans are going to click on it and read it because that's what we're like. We want to find out the most and the latest on our club. And they know that Liverpool, obviously being one of the biggest clubs in world football, are going to get massive media interest. So, look, the big one, obviously, is the Antoine Semenyo situation. Now, this morning, there's a lot of Manchester United fans online commenting about how Semenyo is going to come to Old Trafford, how he's going to link up with Brian Mbuemo, or Brian Mbuemo as I like to call him, and what's he called? Matteo Cunha. I don't know what he's called. And they're going to win the league. They're going to win the Champions League next season. They're going to win everything. Mate, seriously delusional. If he's got a choice between Man United and Liverpool, he goes to Liverpool. Why would he want to throw his career away and downgrade at Manchester United? It just makes zero sense to me, that one. It just does. Now, according to Fabrizio Romano, there's a strong likelihood that Antoine Semenyo will move in the January transfer window. Now, the fee is 60 million with 5 million in add-ons. The fee is guaranteed for the first couple of weeks of the window so that Bournemouth could then get in a replacement if Semenyo leaves. Now, that then drops apparently in the summer to 50 million with 5 million in add-ons if you wait to the summer to try and get him again early in the summer window. So, Liverpool have got a decision to make here. A big decision to make. Do they go in January? Do they look at it and say, well, look, Arsenal could come in, Man City could come in, Spurs could come in, Man United could come in January. If we sit back and wait and hope we're going to get him in the summer for 10 million less, are we going to miss out on the player? Or do they sit back and think, well, he's kind of mentioned stuff about Liverpool and maybe he wants to be a Liverpool player, so we do wait, we do gamble on it. We do try and get him for 10 million less in the summer. Now, people have kind of cited that interview that he gave where he said, by the way, he was asked about which ground is his favourite away ground to go to, and he said Anfield. He also, on another video, said his favourite away ground was the Emirates because he's believed to be an Arsenal fan. There's both interviews out there, so take which one you want as gospel on that one. Look, if Semenyo is available, which I think he is, and it seems like he strongly is, then to me, Liverpool need to move in January for him. I don't see a world where he gets past January, if I'm being honest with you. I see a world where if we wait till the summer, he's gone. I honestly do see a world where we get to January, we come through January, and we leave it, and we leave it, and we leave it, and then I think someone comes in and gets him. I really do. So I do believe there needs to be a situation where we do move from in January. Now, I've seen a lot of people this morning and across the last few days comparing him with Sadio Mane, comparing him with the move we made for him. Mane obviously came from Southampton and was a massive impact on the club. Dave O'Cop this morning, let's credit Dave O'Cop, says Liverpool, Dave O'Cop should I say, Liverpool have held positive talks with Bournemouth over a proposed move to Anfield for the 25-year-old. Liverpool is Semenyo's preferred destination. So that's a positive. Again, the touchline, they're also reporting as well that Liverpool have held positive talks with Bournemouth over Antoine Semenyo. Liverpool are seriously interested, is what Fabrizio Romano is saying. The COP correspondent this morning also saying Liverpool to move fast in January. Semenyo is getting closer, as reported earlier. 65 release clause set to be triggered. So it looks like things will move on that one. So, look, my personal opinion on this one is I think it's a good move. People said, he's a replacement for Salah. Is he? Is he really? I mean, I know he can play right wing, but he actually plays on the left for Bournemouth. Is he more a Diaz replacement? Somebody who we never really replaced. Never really replaced. So I think he's more perhaps a replacement for him. Now, the other positive, of course, was that him and Kerkez worked extremely well last season when they were playing on the left together. So could the arrival of Antoine Semenyo unlock the talent of Milos Kerkez? Now, there's other reports saying as well this morning that Liverpool have a strong interest in Semenyo and are still in the market for another attacker. Liverpool are currently seen as front runners for Semenyo's signature, but sources close to the player believe it's still an open race, which is interesting. They're also saying the Anfield sector that FSG, this is come via Ben Jacobs, are willing to spend the money in January, that they are willing to push to get Semenyo to Liverpool in January. Another positive would be, I think, as well, would be that if Semenyo was to be bought in January, then that is cover for Salah as well. He's probably going to come in and he could take Salah's place. He is both-footed. He can play on both sides. So, you know, he's not just a Diaz replacement, maybe, that he is also, you know, perhaps going to be seen as someone who can come in and replace Mo Salah, which will, of course, beg an interesting question that if Semenyo was to arrive in January, was to hit the ground running and was to be outstandingly good, then Salah comes back. What does Salah do? Does he sit on the bench? Do you drop Semenyo? What do you do? Interesting conversations. Look, I haven't got any inside knowledge on this. I'm not pretending sitting here this morning, pretending to be in the know on this one. I think it's a runner. I think there's too many sources and too many what I would call reliable sources. You know, not IndyCarlia, not Football Insider, not Team Talk, but more reliable sources like Dave Osicott, like Fabrizio Romano, all reporting the same thing, that Liverpool are interested, that Liverpool are pushing this, Liverpool want this, that I think it will happen in January, if it happens. I think if it doesn't happen in January, then he probably goes somewhere else. I think it would be an excellent signing. I really do think it would be an absolutely outstanding signing for Liverpool. I think he would provide pace, aggression, direction, you know, a lot of what we're missing up top. You know, I think if you look at the attacking areas at the moment, we lack pace in wide areas. You know, Cody Gakpo is not the fastest. Mo Salah is not fast. Florian Wirtz is not fast. Federico Chiesa is not fast. Ekitike is quick, but yeah, I suppose he could be used out wide, but realistically he's more a central player. Rio Ngamoa is quite quick as well, but Boss doesn't appear to trust Rio Ngamoa. So I do think that bringing in Antoine Semenyo for me is an absolute no-brainer. It's one that they've got to try and do in January. I think it's absolutely massive for me. Obviously, if you're just picking up the video, guys, if you haven't seen this live, if you're catching this after the fact, please obviously drop me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on Semenyo to Liverpool, along with all the earlier stuff we discussed in the pod. Right, let's touch on the Marc Guéhi situation, shall we? Lots of reports again this morning, and you know, over Guéhi. Now, I'll put my neck out on the line here and say that I think Guéhi does join Liverpool. I think he becomes a Liverpool player. Certainly, a lot of what we're hearing from a lot of different sources, and a lot of, again, reliable sources, is that Marc Guéhi has already given his word that he will join Liverpool, that he will sign Liverpool for Liverpool. That's what is being kind of talked about. Crystal Palace apparently have even come out and said that they think Liverpool are the only team that will push to try and get Guéhi in January. So, like I said, sources are saying things like, we've been told that Guéhi wants Liverpool, which I think a lot of people have said, and will push for a move to Liverpool in January, which kind of flies in the face of, you know, that flies in the face of what was said earlier in the season, where people talk about Guéhi not wanting to move midway through a season because of the World Cup. You know, different people reporting stuff like, for instance, that it's already been agreed and it's just a case of waiting till January to announce it. You know, David Ornstein says Liverpool, that Marc Guéhi is eager to join Liverpool. Transfer News Live says Crystal Palace believe Liverpool are the only club interested in signing centre-back Marc Guéhi in January. Guéhi's contract runs on to the end of the season. He's free to sign a pre-contract agreement with those outside of England. And, you know, you're hearing reports as well that Guéhi, that other clubs are distancing themselves, a la the Manchester City, Real Madrid, from Florian Wirtz in the summer because of his wage demands are too high or his signing on fees too high. There's that distancing going on, which is funny, because that kind of saying that he's kind of telling them, I'm not coming, so they're looking for a way out on this one. I think sort of the interesting kind of question on this one would be, if Guéhi does sign, does he go straight into the team? You know, if Ibu Konate doesn't sign or does sign, does he replace Ibu? I think personally he does. I think he's a better player than Ibu Konate. I think he's more solid. I think he'll make the defence a lot stronger. I personally believe that failing to sign Guéhi in the summer is probably one of the biggest failures and one of the biggest reasons why we're struggling defensively at this moment. Guéhi, I think, would have made a huge, huge difference had he been signed in the summer. So I do think there's a world where we push. Now, what the fee will be, I don't know. What is acceptable to Palace and acceptable to Liverpool at this point when he's going to be on a free in the summer? I don't know. You know, it may be that Palace at a point where they go, well, actually, no, we don't want to sell him because we want to try and push as far as we can in the Conference League. We want to try and get European qualification through the league. We want to defend our FA Cup. And the best way of doing that is with Guéhi. Now, I do think if you're going to persuade Palace to move on Gahey, you're probably going to have to offer them between 20 to 25 mil and do it at the start of the window, so they've then got time to replace him. I think that was another reason why they probably didn't want to sell him, was obviously the Igor move collapsed. They didn't have time to replace him. They looked at it that from that aspect and said, oh, we can't sell him now. I think Liverpool may be looking at this in terms of, we need to move from in January because of all the interest from the Premier League clubs in the summer. Obviously, we've seen Man United, Spurs, Chelsea, Man City all looking at Gahey as well. You know, you've seen Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Barcelona all looking at him in January in terms of that pre-contract. Maybe Liverpool have kind of looked at and gone, right, we need to move from in January. We need to get this deal tied up. I certainly hope there's legs in this one. I certainly hope there's legs in this one. I don't think we've got much to worry about in terms, and I might be wrong about this, and this may come back to haunt me, that Gahey will sign for Liverpool at some point. When, I don't know. I hope it's January. I really hope it's January, because I think if we do get him in January and we get Semenyo, this really kicks this team on for the second part of the season. Now, I'm not saying we defend our league title by any stretch of the imagination, but if you bring in Gahey and Semenyo in January, you therefore put the FA Cup and the Champions League, I think, very much on the table. Now, for this season to be not acceptable, for this to be a good season, Liverpool need to win at least 2 trophies for me. It'll be an acceptable season if we were to just win the FA Cup. If we were to win nothing this season, that is unacceptable given the amount of money that Liverpool have spent this summer and would have spent, I think, have spent. I don't think it's acceptable for us to come away with no trophies. I think just the FA Cup makes it acceptable. I think winning the Champions League and the FA Cup makes it a very good season. Doesn't make it an outstanding season. That would be winning the EPL and the Champions League. I think, but winning the Champions League would make it a good season as well. So I think, given the fact that these 2 players are available, if you can push that through in January, it automatically, to me, makes this team better. It makes this squad better. It makes us have more strength in depth. It gives us a better opportunity going forward. I mean, could you imagine if we had a team that looked something like this? I'm going to put it in the live chat so you can see it. And this is going off everyone being fit. This is what we're talking about. Everyone is fit and good to go. You've got options there, haven't you? You've got real options in terms of your players. So for me, if you went in with something that looked, if everyone's fit, on form and firing, if you went in with something along the lines of this, and I'm going on Isak fitting in, Salah being in form, so let's have a little look. So I'm going to go like this. Let's have a little look. Something like that. I mean, if you went in with Alisson, Bradley, Gahey, Virgil, Robbo, Grav, Sobbo, Wirtz, Semenyo, Isak, Ekitike. Ekitike, I think, can play from the left. He does it for France. That's scary. And you've got Salah, maybe also Gakpo. You've got a lot of attacking options there, a lot of scary attacking options you can rotate through and cause a lot of teams a lot of sleepless nights, in my opinion. So for me, that is definitely something we should be looking at. Really is something we should be looking at for January. Now, Adam Wharton was the other one that's been talked about. I don't think that's a January deal. People within the club have said that Wharton is not an active target at this moment in time. I believe Wharton could be a target in the summer. Liverpool look to kind of back up Grav and bring in another 6. So I think Wharton could be a target in the summer. I certainly feel that is an option. Now, Wharton coming in would add further strength in depth, and I think that would make this squad even stronger going forward. But like I said, I don't see that one happening in January. Well, guys, look, it's good to be back. It's good to have real football back on Saturday. Let me know your thoughts on the stories we've discussed in this live this morning. Thank you to all those who've watched. If you haven't watched it live, obviously, please thank you for watching it recorded. Is it recorded? I don't know, whatever it's called. Please obviously smash a like on the video. Please sub and comment and share. It's been a pleasure speaking to you as always, guys, here on the Liverpool FC Journal. I will catch you on the next one.
you.